Hello guys and welcome back to this tutorial. In this lecture we are going to discuss differences and also things that they have in common about XML and JSON languages. So we talked in the previous lectures about each one of them and each of their specifications, what they are, in what context they can be used. But now, doing a comparison between them, maybe you can furthermore easily decide which one is best for you in your own API representation. So, as we've seen, both JSON and XML can be used in order for you to receive data from a web server or in order for you to send data as a client to a web server. They are basically just ways of putting the data that is communicated in between web parties. When it comes to things that they have in common, they are both very structured in a hierarchical way, meaning, of course, that they have those tags in the case of XML and curly braces in case of JSON that represent values within values, so they are very structured, both of them. And they are also human readable, also known as self-describing. And also, another thing that we can observe on both of them is that they can be fetched with an HTTP request, which also makes them so useful when talking about APIs and communication over the internet. They also, of course, can be parsed and used by lots of programming languages. But here comes the main difference in between these two markup languages, and that is obviously being that XML has to be parsed with an actual XML parser, while JSON can be parsed by a standard JavaScript function. And when it is parsed by a standard JavaScript function, it's parsed into a ready-to-use JavaScript object, and as you can conclude from that, that's a major advantage for JSON, as it is much easier to transcribe into actual code when you are working with it and you are receiving it, and XML is much more difficult to parse than JSON in that regard. Now, another key differences between these two might be that JSON objects that are parsed with JavaScript always have some kind of types, either if it's a string, a number, array, or boolean, whether the XML data is typeless and should be string. Also, XML supports comments, while JSON does not support any kinds of comments. If you maybe read some JSON files, you saw that there were absolutely no comments there. And while JSON is supported by most browsers nowadays, XML cross-browser parsing can be tricky, and you might have some problems when you deal with special browsers. I personally never ran into that, but apparently it is possible. And the last difference that we have here would be that the JSON is less secured than an XML, and that is probably the strongest point that you would look at if trying to choose XML over JSON. But again, JSON is much easier to be parsed, and it is also the go-to way to transmit data on the web when coming especially to REST APIs, while XML is mostly used with SOAP APIs. So personally, I prefer JSON more, but depending on what you're trying to build and what type of API you want to build, I think it's best for you to choose for yourself and for your own needs in between these two languages. So thank you guys for sticking with me to the end of this lecture, and I really look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.